All right. Good morning. Welcome to the Thursday Thread. I'm Andy Lockwood, college advisor, and joined with the star of the show, uh, CPA, business building expert for more than 40 years, Mr. Neil Gilmet. Good morning, Neil.
Good morning, Andy. And not just a college advisor, you're also my coach and my expert in direct marketing. So you are also, in addition to being a college advisor, you are really a direct marketing pro, one of the best I've seen. So let's not forget about that.
All right. Thank you. Thank you for the correction. So we're switching gears a little bit here because we had some technical difficulties. We were going to bring on one of your disciples, but his mic worked, but his speakers wouldn't connect. So we're switching gears, and we're going to talk about really one of the core teachings of your system, which is the thread of continuity. So I think the best way to think about the thread of continuity is, I mean, it's very aptly named. So you're good at coming up with names, first of all. But what it I think is very important for people to understand and to change their thinking is pretty much everything you do in business, from before you meet with a prospective client to when you meet with a prospective client, and then when you start working with them and onward, that all should follow this thread of continuity. So can you give a little overview of it, and then we'll break down some of the components?
Okay. Well, first of all, the purpose of the thread of continuity is to optimize your business. Now, I didn't say practice, I said business because, excuse me, there's a big difference between the practice of accounting and the business of accounting. And what we're going to be talking about is the business of accounting, wherein the accounting firm becomes a vehicle to support your quality of life and the income that you want. As a practice, you very often support it and you're working for the practice.
Right.
And if it were a vehicle, you'd be a passenger rather than the driver. And you'd be working for the practice rather than the business working for you. So we're going to talk about business. Now,
yeah, I mean, sorry to interrupt, but a lot of people don't even realize that they're once they've been working for a few years, they don't realize that instead of the business working for them, it's the opposite. So I think that's really important.
That's what Harlan was going to talk about today, too, about the transition. And we'll get him back next week when the equipment's working properly. But the simple thing is the difference between the business of accounting and the practice of accounting. The practice of accounting is the way it's always been done. We sell accounting services by the hour. We sell our time to other people. We sell it by the hour. We charge by the hour, etc. Yes, there's some value pricing, actually value billing. There's a difference between value pricing and value billing. But there's some value pricing and value billing. But in essence, most practices are still selling accounting services by the hour, which is fine. You can make a good living selling accounting services by the hour, but you also have to work very hard to do so. So if you want to make a transition to an accounting business, that means you have to start with item number one. What business are you in? And if you're in the business of selling accounting and tax services, you're in trouble because there's a million people out there selling accounting and tax services. So for you to be able to excel in business, really excel in business, you've got to stop selling accounting services and start selling results. Now, what are results? Every business owner out there only wants two results in their life. They have a quality of life they aspire to, and then there's the income to support that quality of life. That's what drives everybody. That's why we get up and go to work. And quality of life is not just a life you live outside your business. It's what you live on a day-to-day basis in the business. And you either make that happen for you or let it happen to you.
Exactly.
And now we come back to where does it all start? By answering the question, we are in the business of. And again, if your answer is selling accounting and tax services, you need to take a hard look. If you answer, we're in the business of applying our accounting knowledge and experience and our business acumen to help select clients make and keep more money, that's a different business than selling accounting and tax services. So let's say you chose
More high value business.
well, yeah, absolutely. Let's say you chose the latter rather than the former. That becomes the cornerstone of the business that you're in. And the first component of that business is consciously and efficiently attracting a steady stream of the exact right type of prospects for your business. And it's not just anybody that needs accounting and can fog a mirror. You have to define the exact client that you're looking for, because if you haven't defined them in writing, how do you recognize them when you stumble over them? More importantly, how do you work with somebody like Andy to put together an efficient marketing program that brings them to you on a steady basis? Let me just ask on this aside, Andy. You are using your own marketing techniques on your own business. How many prospects did your techniques generate for you this year?
Yeah. You're talking about the Glengarry leads from Glengarry, Glen Ross. So in 2020, and we're in February 21 as we record this, I generated 421 people who filled out questionnaires to qualify themselves to speak with me. And that's a high number for me. I was actually surprised and a little disheartened by it, because I meant I was working too hard. So I'm working on my throughput process a little bit. But I spoke to about 92% and change of them. And I sell a high fee service. Well, I'm getting seasick. What are you doing there?
Right. I moved the camera.
All right. And then so fidgety. And then I converted, it was 28 point something %. So I could have generated more leads. I mean, it's just a function of once you dial in exactly what you're looking for, that's a big part of it. Like you said, the next component of that, I mean, there's all these sub steps within this thread of continuity. So the next component of that is saying, okay, well, what message is going to resonate with them? And like you said, whatever you say, the messages have to be not about we do this service. It's more about what are these benefits: better quality of life, better income, work less, make more, whatever it is. And that takes tweaking. That doesn't happen right out of the gate. You've got to test different things. In my case, that means testing different headlines for ads, or different workshop promo flyers, or different print ads, different direct mail pieces, whatever. You don't have to do everything at once. And then the next part is figuring out, and it's all simultaneous. It's not sequential. Is, well, where are you going to find these people? So you know who they are. You know what message they're going to respond to, but where are they? Where do they hang out? I
call that fishing in the right pond.
Yeah.
If you don't know what you're fishing for, how do you know what pond to fish in?
Right. So all these things are really the core components to marketing. There's a lot more, like how do you follow up, but the message, once you figure out, and it's usually not just one message. It's usually a few different ones that are most likely interrelated, but that is the beginning, the tip of the thread of continuity that's going to run through your entire relationship. If they become paying clients or if they remain prospects, you can't really depart from that if you want to build a good practice where you are working with people that you want to work with.
And it's highly profitable rather than marginally profitable. Too many of the CPA firms that I work with have somewhere between 15 and 30% of their clients, the relationships, are either marginally profitable or unprofitable. Why would you want to work on unprofitable business and churn dollars? It costs money to churn dollars.
Well, of course you wouldn't, but do they even realize that they're unprofitable until you sit down and examine their book of business?
Nope. Most of them don't.
And they're accountants, so you'd think they would. Yeah.
But the accounting profession goes back to that class of 46 mentality. What they track is number of hours sold and the realization rate that they got paid for those hours. It does not show profit per engagement, which is the most important thing. We need to know whether every engagement is profitable or not. And my experience tells me that when you do it properly, you should be able to look at a 60% gross profit. That's cost of goods sold in accounting is simple. It's labor, not counting partner labor. But partner labor should be 40% or less. And every engagement should be looked at to see if it has that type. So there's a thread of continuity to the type of client you want for the type of services or relationship that you create for the dollars that you create with it. That's what it's all about. Now, there has to be a thread of continuity from that original decision of the business that you're in that ties right up through the marketing that Andy was talking about. And also, it's based upon precision of language.
Right.
A large part of it is precision of language. And that language has to carry right through the delivery of service and then running your factory, which is the fourth component.
Yeah, and what I personally have grappled with and continue to get hung up on it slightly is how to set those expectations with that precision of language, because right in the beginning, from the time you haven't met them to the time you start talking to them and setting their expectations, that's going to dictate the outset and in most cases the entire relationship. So you've got to have that precision of language to get that right. Here's what you can so I actually sent out a letter and I talked to them in the beginning. Here's what we expect from you. Here's what you can expect from us. And that's, again, that ties back in that thread to the beginning before I even met them.
Because people experience professional services. So what you have to be very, very careful about is that you must make sure that their experience has that thread of continuity, not only with the first contact that you make, but with every contact with everybody in your firm should be using the same precision of language and be conversant in the same things so that the client experience, no matter whether they're speaking to the receptionist or the managing partner, the client experience is the same.
So give an example of a firm that you helped with that messaging, because that seems very obvious, but it also seems a little abstract.
Well, let's talk about Harlan, for example.
Good.
He'll be on next week, but one of the things he said was that he believed that he would have to spend the rest of his career, approximately 15 years when I first met him, with about 35% of his clients who he neither liked and doing work that he didn't like to do, but that's where the money came in. And I disabused him of that notion and showed him that you can fire clients. Well, you don't have to fire them. You can get them to work with you the way you want them to. If you are an unprofitable client, we use precision of language to have a conversation with you, and we give you an option. We make
So I guess I'd love to ask this question of him directly. But when in the relationship did he realize that they weren't a good fit? And
all the way along while he was building his practice. He's an entrepreneur. He got into something called New Clients Inc. and used that to build his practice. And he had, from the good, bad, and the ugly, which every CPA firm has, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. It's called a practice built by the process of entropy rather than a purpose-built practice.
Mm-hmm.
And a purpose-built practice has a specific purpose with a very strong thread of continuity. It's built to create a specific end result. An example, Mark Baylog, who's also going to be on, hit the purpose-built practice that he built. He's a CPA, but he decided to specialize in the business of dentistry.
Mm.
So over the last 5 years, we have built a marketing machine that brings him a constant stream of new dentists because the marketplace perceives that he's different. And they perceive that he's different because he does things that are different. An example is he went to the Shine Equipment Company that sells a lot of stuff to dentists.
Right.
And he said to the salesman, can you teach me how your equipment helps a doctor make money? And the salesman said, why? He said, because if I don't understand how your equipment helps a doctor make money, how can I refer it to my doctors? How can I say to them, you need to take a look at this piece of equipment?
Yeah.
Now that salesman was ecstatic. Now that salesman is knocking on every door that if they're not happy with their accountant, you have to meet Mark Baylog. He specializes in the business of dentistry. And
so that starts. Sorry to interrupt. So that starts the thread,
right?
By the time he tees up a conversation with that prospect that's been referred to him, they may already get an idea that he's a specialist. In Harlan's case, when he's in the beginning, when he was taking, indiscriminately to some extent,
he was a generalist.
And you take in a client that you're not going to get along with. That's an awful thread of continuity that's only going to continue to manifest itself in a distasteful manner unless you flip them over, right? So
it's like being a doctor that's a GP today. You have a little bit of everything, and the difference between a doctor that's a GP makes a lot less money and works a lot harder than a brain surgeon. And that's the difference between the two. The brain surgeon's specialized, highly specialized. And the higher the risk, the higher the value, et cetera. But the brain surgeons usually don't take people on Medicare or Medicaid.
Right. And you're not going to shop around price-wise for a specialist if you have a heart problem.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Can you do that for a little cheaper? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Save me a few bucks. You got to have heart. But
so what about what about the thread of continuity when it comes to staff and precision of language, and that? Can you give a little bit of background or some examples about that?
What I said when we first started about being conversant in the business that you're in. For instance, we help select business owners make and keep more money and grow their businesses and have better quality of life. If that's the unique value proposition that you put forth, you ought to be able to take your entire staff, put them out on the front lawn of your building and say, okay, finish the sentence. We're in the business of, and everybody finishes that sentence in sync with the same language.
Yeah.
Because that way your entire firm has built a culture that's designed to generate more business. It's designed to generate business and designed to keep what you generate. So that's the culture. Mm-hmm. Now, this first step is creating the right opportunities in the marketplace. The second step is using precision of language and repeatable process to convert the maximum number of those prospects that you deem to be right for your practice. Not everyone, you're not there to take them all. You're not right for everyone. So you need to understand who your ideal client is so that when you recognize that ideal client, you have a process that dramatically increases the chances of bringing that prospect aboard at a high profit. And that's doable. It's repeatable. It's trainable. So there's a thread of continuity carries through.
Let me give you a specific example that you helped me with also, just to make this less abstract. So we've mentioned this frequently, which is the concept that you, the practitioner, or me, the practitioner of my business, but the accountant, the practitioner, you get to work with me. This is not precision of language. You don't say this, but you've got to feel that I am unique. You only get me if you're lucky. I'm the prize, that type of thing. In terms of the continuity, that thread that connects those two, creating the opportunities, the marketing, and then the discovery session and the potential sales opportunity when you're sitting face to face, that has got to be apparent underlying both steps, either overtly, so it's not underlying, or actually indirectly, which is along the lines of language that I use is if I'm doing a presentation, I'll say, look, you guys had a lot of great questions. And I'm sure some of you would like to talk to me about potentially exploring a working relationship together. However, there's a lot of you guys and there's only one of me. So what I'm going to do is offer 15 free consultations. We usually charge $499, blah, blah, blah. So that's an example, shorthand, of how I start in the beginning, in the marketing phase. And then once I sit down with them, I'm still putting them through some hoops, which indirectly, but I think pretty obviously send the message that I'm up here. I'm the top of the mountain. I'm not wasting time. I want to make sure that you're going through a little bit of work. So I have them fill out a questionnaire. I have them speak to someone else, not me, to book my appointment, or they can do it online. They have two choices. Right. And then when I sit down and I work through a lot of the questions that you've helped me with, underlying all those questions is, do you qualify for me to be able to help you? So I'll even say, look, in the beginning, I don't know if I can help you or not. I'd like to hear about your situation, take it from the top. But if I can't help you, I'll tell you that right away. And if I can help you, then I'll describe all the gory details of our program and you can make a decision. And everyone's like, yeah, I hope you can help me. Most of them are, I hope you can help me. So now they're in a position where they're applying to work with me. And that's consistent with that thread of continuity. The opposite would be, hey, I'm in the blah, blah, blah business, and here's my business card. When can I call you? Does tomorrow work at 2 o'clock or 4 o'clock? Or I'll even talk to you at 9 p.m. tomorrow. I'm not chasing. I'm trying to magnetize them, as you say, to me, with the takeaway sale, with that pricing and takeaway concept.
The same thing we teach accountants. If you meet with a prospect and you go into the sales pitch of, we've been in practice for 323 years and have 92 partners. You're doing what I call show up and throw up. You're better off saying to them, Andy, we have a very different approach than other accounting firms. And because it's different, it's not right for every business owner. The business owners it's right for see a significant impact in several areas. Number one, they get to keep more money. Number two, they have a better quality of life, both inside the business and outside the business. Number three, their business has more saleable market value. And number four, they get a reduced burden of management. And we do that in a partnering relationship with select business owners. And when we do that, we generate more than we cost. So in essence, we're helping them build their business, and they're getting their accounting at no cost because we're generating more than we cost. Versus looking at the traditional accounting relationship, which is purely an expense on the balance sheet or on a P&L, on a profit and loss statement. So the question becomes, if I look at my accounting relationship, is it an expense or is it a source of additional income, business growth, and more than pays for itself? And which would you rather have? Which accountant would you rather have?
Right. But we only work with select clients who are a good fit for us.
We've said we're not right for everyone, and you're not right for everyone.
So I don't know if you're right for me, but with your permission, I'd like to ask you a few questions, right, to explore that.
Now we can get to find out. You can start asking them questions to find out if indeed they are right for you. Yeah. And again, going back to that ideal client, if you haven't identified them, how do you know whether they're right for you or not?
Exactly.
Put you in a whole different position.
Yeah, it's actually positioning, right? That's the term. And then the rest of that relationship, of course, your staff has to be extremely polite and treat them with kid gloves and all that. But I would argue you don't ever want to let them forget that they get you as the prize, not the other way around. So I'll just talk about an example that happened 2 days ago in our practice. So Pearl, my wife, does 300 something financial aid applications each year, and we have quite a few. I'd say, if I had to guess, 35% are people who've been with us a few years because they have multiple kids and they reapply for aid every year. So they know how we work. So there's a guy yesterday, 2 days ago, who he gets on the phone with Pearl, and he hasn't provided, 25-30% of the documents she needed to like his W-2s. She got the tax return, not the W-2s. And he scheduled a call with her, and I'm like, first of all, why are you even talking to him? He shouldn't get to speak to you until he's provided everything. Have our assistant call him first. And she said, well, okay, at this point, I'll just go ahead and do it. And then they get on the phone, and he's clearly wasting her time. it's a bottleneck in the throughput process, to use Neil language.
Yep.
And she flat out, and she recognized that. And after a few excruciating minutes, probably more than I would have spent, she was like, "Listen, you need to make another appointment. Call me back once you provided everything." And he was like, "But," and she said, "Look, if you need me to refer you to somebody else, I'll do that. But this is how we work. This is how we work." And then she felt a little badly because, she's a nice person and he's gone through some tough times or whatever. But that doesn't negate the fact that her time is very valuable. And she's not paid as a rent-a-friend. She's paid to provide a result.
Right.
So, it's constantly. So we kind of blew it a little bit there because we allowed him to get to speak to her before he finished the process of what he owed us. And I imagine that's very similar to a lot of accountants.
Well, that's coming full circle with Harlan. One of the things I got him to understand was that one of the biggest problems in the profession of accounting is what I call engagement creep.
Yeah.
And you have an engagement with a client, and you've given him an engagement letter which defines everything in the engagement. And then they're calling you for one of these, and they call you for one of that, and they call you, "Look, I'm thinking of getting a new car. Should I buy or rent the car?" And you spend time with them on it, but you don't charge them for it because accountants are afraid to charge. So we're
not trained, though. I mean, I ask my accountant things like that. He hasn't trained me to say, not to ask him those things either.
No. Yeah. He just takes the phone calls and says nothing.
Yeah.
And that's called engagement creep. And pretty soon you're finding that you're spending three times the amount of time you thought you would with a client, but you're not getting three times the fee. So what we teach them to do, and where it started with Harlan, was identifying the worst 10 clients that he had and what made them the worst 10 clients. And some of them were unprofitable. Some of them we had to chase for our money for as much as a year.
Ugh.
And some of them were rude to his staff. Well, if you're profitable, but you're going to be rude to my staff, I have a 4-letter word for you. Next. I don't need anybody that's going to be rude to my staff. I'm a professional. Yeah. We provide a high level of value, and either you treat us with respect or you can find somebody else to work with. It's an attitude thing. Mm-hmm. So we identified the bottom 10% of his clients. I think it was about 20 clients altogether. And out of the 20 clients, 18 of them came into compliance. 18 of them stopped what they were doing, either paid us more money to be profitable. We raised prices on everybody, and we had precision of language to do it. Well,
and also it's a testament to how good a job Harlan was doing for them too, that they valued.
Yeah, right. And the bottom line was, and this happens in accounting firms constantly, is that you're not getting paid what you should be getting paid for the amount of time and effort you're putting into the client. But you don't know how to have that conversation, because all I hear from accountants is clients don't want to pay more fees. Clients don't want to pay fees. That's not the truth. Clients do not perceive the value they get from the relationship. And whose fault is that? It's not the client's fault. You're not helping that client see the value of the relationship that you provide. And when they see that value, they have no problem paying for it.
And again, to come full circle, if you start that demonstration of value from the beginning with your marketing before you even talk to them, then you're beginning from a position of power, and the people that are going to beat you up on price, if you market the right way, they're going to self-exclude. So you're going to be left with a pool of people who are leaning toward you and understand value as opposed to price.
They will self-exclude, and that's what you want them to do. Yeah. You don't want to work hard at it. And that's why it comes back to the cornerstone of the footing that you put the foundation of your business on is called a unique value proposition. It's the unique value that you bring to the world that your competition doesn't, or that your competition may, but they're unable to communicate it. They're unable to communicate it clearly and concisely. So it all starts with the unique value proposition. And that thread of continuity goes through your marketing, your advertising, it goes through your closing process, it goes through your intake process, your client intake process.
Mhm.
There's got to be a thread of continuity on it. It's got to be formally done. I'm working with a tax resolution company down in Alabama, a national, but they're out of Alabama. And we've put everything into process. We have a client intake process. We have a 14-step client contact process where we maintain contact with that client on 14 different points so that they are never wondering where we are. We're always ahead of them and ahead of that curve. Everything is process driven. It's all tied to the unique value proposition that says we're different. And the difference that we have is to your benefit.
And it sounds like with the tax resolution guy Ben, his clients see that messaging reinforced, and it's kept in front of their faces throughout the process, which is that's how you have it's a big part of how you have an efficient throughput process, so that expectations are being met on both sides, and if they're not, it's clear which party is not living up to them, and which party needs to change or leave.
Yeah, right. And the problem in that business is once you get a client in and get all the paperwork flowing through the IRS is like a black hole. Stuff goes in there and doesn't come out. So the client is wondering what's going on. We don't really know what's going on, but we know what's going on. So we let them know that we reached out to the IRS this week on your behalf.
Good.
We spoke
Proactively.
to the agent. They've got a problem with COVID and they're being held up, or they've got this or they've got that. But we reached out on your behalf. We're keeping you informed as to what's going on, rather than the client sitting around saying, "I never hear from these people."
Yeah, exactly. What should I be doing now? Yeah.
Right. So
Good.
we make it really easy, and that's the thread of continuity into delivering on the value promise. So you've got creating the proper opportunities, you've got converting them, function number 2. Once you convert them, you need to deliver on the value promise. And again, that's managing perceptions and managing expectations. And when I say managing perceptions, perception is reality.
Sure.
What you perceive to be becomes your reality. We need to manage our clients' perceptions. We need to manage their expectations. And everything works a lot more efficiently, and we make a lot more money with a lot less work.
Yeah, I mean, Ben does a lot of presentations, right? You're a tax res guy, and I'm sure that he talks about the black hole in the beginning. And if he doesn't, he should. When he starts working on a case, so before they hire him, they get introduced to the idea that there's a lot of waiting after you submit everything.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure he would do that in the initial meeting with the client and then throughout. So that's super important to do, and it makes your life easier.
It's part of the unique value proposition we created, which also ties into the client intake package and process. So it's all process driven. Now, the third component, as I said, is delivering on the value promise. And there's a lot of work to do it really, really well. You can do a half-ass job, but you get a half-ass result. Right. So there's a major investment in time and energy to get it done properly. And it doesn't happen overnight. There are no silver bullets out there, folks. Don't let anybody in the marketing world sell you a silver bullet, because they don't exist. They just don't exist.
No.
But it takes time, it takes energy, it takes testing, it takes process. But when you've built the machine, and I'm working with several people that we have that machine up and running well, that are in the accounting world as another world. Once that machine is up and running, you just have to keep nudging it. You don't have to work so hard to keep it moving. But the fourth component is the killer, because if you do 1, 2, and 3 properly, but you don't run your factory at optimum efficiency, maximize the throughput process of your factory, you end up with all the profit leaks, that all the profits that you made in steps 1, 2, and 3 fall through the cracks in the factory process. So
Yep.
part of it, again, is managing your throughput process. And when you tie it all together, you have an optimized money-making machine that's fun to work with, that you look forward to going to work with. That's
Absolutely.
the name of the game.
All right. Well, we just covered a lot of ground here, and I think this is a very important topic. That's the name of the show, the Thursday Thread, because of your core concept, the thread of continuity. So, if people want more information on how they can get a hold of you to explore any of these or all of these things that we talked about, how do they get in touch?
Call me, Neil. Reach me, Neil at cpanetwork.org, or call me at my cell phone, 631-513-3309. That's 631-513-3309.
All right.
And
Terrific. So maybe next
reach
week
out.
reach out to Neil. Drop a comment if you're watching this on Facebook or on LinkedIn, wherever this appears, and we will get back to you. And maybe next week we'll work out the technical difficulties and get your star pupil on, so we can not only hear him, but he can hear us.
Ready to go.
Okay.
All right.
Have a good week, everybody. Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Neil.